Back again in the shop for another install. We're gonna do the tie rods on the front end of a Pro R. We already did the ZRP one on this side, so we could get through all the kinks, so you won't have to have the same problems we had. Let's jump into it, Brian. What do you say?
Let's get this tire off first, huh?
Yeah, we got to pull the tire off. That'll be numero uno. This thing has an excessive amount of travel. You better have a good jack to get this bad boy off the ground. Just don't jack it off. I mean, what?
No jacking off on TV.
Yeah, you don't want to do that on YouTube. So you're going to have to take the caliper off. Be really careful when you take the caliper off, though, because those pads are kind of a pain to get back into the caliper whenever you do so. When you take the caliper off, slide the rotor off, and then you can get in here and take that bad boy off. And I believe the calipers were 16 millimeter, something like that.
Correct the mundo.
Yep. They're pretty tight. There we go. So there's two of them. One right there. And another one under there. Right there. Once again, whenever you take that bad boy off, be careful with the pads, because like I said, they're kind of a pain to get it back in the spot.
Keeps your wrench on there handy, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Until I get the bottom one off.
And then, do you remember what the lower bolt was, or not?
15, wasn't it?
No, it's bigger than that. It looks like a 21.
Oh, this for the tie rod itself. Yeah.
So the tie rod ball joint is going to be a 21. So we'll get all that removed and we'll get back to you. So why you might want to be doing this is the stock setup right here. Pretty beefy, good sized joint on it. Not a bad unit altogether until we get down to here. So the ball joint that they use is really nice, but look how thin that is. Like that is a stress riser that is going to break on a hard impact. And you break a tie rod, you are dead on the trail. You ain't fixing that. So ZRP came out with this bad boy, machined uniball cup with the FK bearing, and then they have a really nice snap ring in there. And you go to the top, all billet stainless steel, it looks like 17.4 or something like that. This bolt, you can thread that bolt in, put the cup or the attachment on, and it has a lock screw right there to keep that bolt from spinning. So you don't have to Loctite that. You can just put that in there. And FK rod ends on both ends to adjust. Just a really nice piece of equipment. 7071 body, aluminum body. You know, there is a difference between 71 and 6061. So this is aircraft quality. This is the good shit. So not that this isn't this is bad, but it's just not good enough for that spirited riding race, getting it on the trail, especially with that really thin spot on the going up against the rack on the joint. So you're going to need to remove the boot. They use a metal zip tie in there, or a metal clamp of some sort, which is a pain in the ass to get off, but just go slow. Don't rip the boot. Just take it easy to get that boot off. So that's off. We'll slide the boot down. There was another clamp down where his hand was at, but we got that one off. So we're gonna slowly slide that down. Now we can work on getting the joint down here taken off. You're going to need where is it? No, we'll take the joint down off there.
Oh.
You're gonna need the ball joint press right there. So the reason you took the caliper off is to get this bad boy in there. Don't hammer on the end of the threads. You'll just destroy them if you ever want to sell the part. If you don't care, then just send it on the threads if you'd like. But you just want to line it up and pop that out. So we'll get that lined up and popped out, and we'll go to the next step. So we got this out. It's kind of a pain in the ass, but either that or you could get some forks underneath there, and that would probably be a better option than the puller. But now we're gonna take this off. This has a metric shit ton of Loctite in it. So get a big pair of channies or a bolt. You have to go the other way, Brian. I'd flip those around. There you go.
Oh yeah,
that's the way it'll bite, yeah. There it goes. It's really tight, but you gotta just break that Loctite free, and you'll see when we go to clean the threads out how much Loctite is in there.
Oh my
There
goodness.
we go. Now we're cooking with gas.
That was tighter than the first one.
Yes. Yeah, this whole side was a little tighter. There we go. And now we'll go to the next step. So now you can see how much Loctite is in here. So we need to clean all of that out. All that's got to get cleaned out. We'll use a pick, some air, and maybe some heat, and we'll get that cleaned out. Once you get it pretty much cleaned out, I like to put the bolt in that goes for the clevis. Come on, camera, focus. And put a little grease on there. And then run this in and out a few times. It'll really clean up those threads because there's still some Loctite in there. So we'll run this in and out a few times and clean it up. If you have a tap that fits it, even better, but we don't, so this is what we're gonna do. So now we got that bad boy all cleaned up. You can see it's real nice in there. After you put grease on this and run this in a few times, if you don't have a tap, just make sure you put some brake cleaner in there and get that grease out. That way it doesn't loosen. But I don't believe there's any need for Loctite on that because the clevis has a lock screw on it that locks that bad boy in there. So this won't be able to move. If you want to blue Loctite that, you can, but I don't think it's needed. So now we'll install this piece on there. Brian, if you want to do that. So the bolt just slides through the center of the clevis, and you just thread that bad boy on.
Come on. I need the key.
Is there.
It's so I can get my fingers something to grab onto.
Usually I just spin the whole unit around. There it goes.
Nice.
Cool.
Bingo.
Bingo bango. So now, put your impact on there. And then you want to get it just so it's tight. And then this is important stuff right here because the clevis shouldn't be just straight up and down. You don't want it straight up and down. You want it slightly adjusted right there. So you kind of want it at an angle, like a pitch that comes down. So if it's straight up and down with the machine, you want it almost the same angle that the rack is. Because then the tie rod, when they go up and down, they'll tend to bind on that. So as long as you get it at a good straight angle with the rack, I think you'd be best off. Yeah, or just straight up and down with the rack or 10 degrees to the chassis. And then put your set screw in over here. I don't know if you guys can see that. I think it's right there. The camera will focus right there. Yep. And then when that's tight and you like everything where it's at, tighten that and then put your set screw in. and we'll move on to the next step. So now you install it with the misalignments going up towards the rack. This little dip joint right here goes on to the hub itself. So we'll stick that in here. Get my glove out of there. Perfect. And then it is a 19 millimeter for the lock nut on the back, which is a nylock. So you don't have to get this relentlessly tight. Just get it, you know, snug. Get it pretty locked in. And then we'll come down here and we will get our pin, this thing right here. So this is the tie rod pin that goes into the spindle. And I believe this is all stainless, really nice, fancy stuff right here, high quality. Oop. So before you get too ahead of yourself, you're gonna need to get the boot off of here. And this is reverse thread. Yes, I'm that strong. Just kidding, we already did it. So you're gonna reverse thread that all the way off till you get just this piece off right here. And then you can slide the boot off, and then you can reconnect this so you can have it as a spare, or, you know, do whatever you want with it. Sell it on eBay. Take it to your local scrap yard. Yeah, walking stick. It's a little short for that, but perfect. And Brian will slide that boot ski off if he does that the right way. What is the saying? If you shake it more than twice, you're playing with it.
Well, I've been playing it.
Boots off.
30 years.
30 years of playing with it. Get you a boot off. And then you'll need a heat gun for this. So you're going to heat up this end of it right here.
Very carefully.
Yeah, very carefully, because you'll cook it. And then put a little bit of grease in there, and you'll just be able to slide that bad boy back on there. And once again, we don't want to slide it all the way up to the top. We want to leave it right in the middle for right now, because we're going to need to adjust that nut up there to adjust our toe as soon as we get it down, like we did over here. So we'll leave it about halfway, maybe a little more. That way we can make our adjustments, and then whenever it's set, we can push the boot all the way up, zip tie it, and lock it in. Heat that up with the heat gun, like so. Like I said, we already put a little grease in the top. So now the boot's on. We'll leave it about halfway on there. Like I said, a little bit of heat goes a long way with this. Works pretty good. We might heat it up again when we go to set it. That way it's kind of loose, but now we can apply the rod back in. This is going to be reverse thread too, so if I can get it locked in. Cool. The pin is on the ground. Now when you go to set this in, you're going to put that pin in, and you're going to use, these are really stiff at the moment, so you can turn it with the bolt. Get that locked in. But before you turn it too much, see right now it's turned too much, we won't be able to get this in there. So we'll actually peel it back out. Ooh. Put that in there, and then we'll pull it over, because then it can sit inside the heim area. And we'll get it set in there like so. So just make sure you put that in first so that it can fit in there correctly. And then boom, that goes in there. These are both metric, so I believe it's a 14 up top and it is an 18 on the bottom. So we'll tighten this bad boy down, and then you'll need to reassemble the whole front end back on. So you'll need to put the rotor back on, the caliper back on. As you can tell, we didn't take care of our brakes, so now we have to reset our brakes. And that just takes a little bit of time, but you can get it done. It's not overly difficult. So we'll get the tire put back on, and then we'll show you how to set the toe. Something we want to note, that whenever you put this whole assembly, whenever you go to put it into the hub, you need to put the whole thing in there, because if you have the suspension dropped out, it's going to need to be at an angle, and it's got to fit inside of the Heim. So if you don't do it, then it'll be sticking out like that, and when you go to cinch it down, you'll break it. So just make sure the whole unit is tied together.
Should we?
And then stick her in there. Make sure there's no gap. Like so, and then now you can put your bolt in. And now everything is seated where it's supposed to be, and you won't have any issues. So when you don't seat it like that, you'll get it how we did it over there, and you'll get that gap. So we're gonna have to pull this tire off and reseat that so that it fits, so that the misalignment fits into the uniball cup. Another thing you want to notate, sorry we keep going backwards, we're going to take this off real quick because these Heims need to be evenly spaced. This one and this one. So you don't have to take apart stuff and fall down like Brian just did.
It's tight.
So make sure that these Heims have the same amount of threads on them. So we'll spin that one, or spin the body out, and that way we can have the same amount of adjustment. That way we don't run out of Heim on either side. So just another thing to notate. And yeah, we're almost done. We're about to get ready to put the tire on, and then we'll set the toe. So we got our string line around the car. You can see that tire's out of whack. See how this one is. This one looks pretty close for the most part, maybe a little bit in. So we'll see if I can turn it by hand in. You want to make sure you have someone holding the wheel, like I am right now, have Brian holding the wheel. So now there's a big gap. So now we need to go back out. And as soon as it touches, right there, that means your money. So this tire needs to go in. So we're gonna see how it popped free? There's a little gap. So we'll just keep going until the tire touches it, just taps it just barely. Boom. And then you give her the old visual reference. Tire or wheel still straight, Brian?
Wheel's still straight.
Looks beautiful. So now you're just gonna tighten your jam nuts down to 1 1/8 inch, and then I think it's similar for the jam nut. Do the one up top, do that one, and then make sure you hold the body and tighten those. And then slide your boot up, put a zip tie on the rack, and do the same thing on that side, and then you're good to go. So here's the finished product. Got our boots in there, nice and zip tied, locked in. Jam nuts are tight. Very beefy, strong setup. Definitely a weak link on this car, I could imagine. So there you go. There's your install video. Like and subscribe the show. Once again, like and subscribe the show, or dislike it, I don't care. Any kind of love is love. So if there's anything else you want to see on this machine, we'll get it put on. Just throw it in the comments. We want to do some headers probably. Who knows, maybe a turbo kit. It's going to turn into a race car, so we'll see what happens. But thank you guys. Say bye, Brian.
Bye, Brian.
See ya. Have a good one.